hearing. We finished the hearing last time we met in the middle of public input, so we are going to resume with public input because there's been quite some time since we last convened. I would like to administer the oath to everyone once again and remind everyone that we anticipate that you will tell the truth when you come up to the podium. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony and evidence you enter into the record will be the truth?
Yes, ma'am. I do.
Okay. Allow me to say that if you have already spoken, you will not be given another opportunity to speak. I'm going to resume with the sheets from last time of the people who did not get a chance to speak. I will read off the names, and when I go through all of these, then I'll turn to the new sheets that have been submitted today. If you have already submitted a sheet because you were here last time, it's not necessary for you to fill out another sheet. So I don't know whether we'll encounter duplicates here, but if we do, we're just going to put them to the side. Okay, is there anything else that needs to be said before we resume?
I don't think so.
Okay, very good. David Van Lanningham. Carleen Van Lanningham. Cheryl Hampton. Alcina Gallego. Debbie Harden. Ralph Harden. Lee Pence. Oh boy. Bernadine Walekovich. Willow Reams. Willa. Okay. Sydney Adams. Okay, would you like to put comments on the record, sir? And then I'm going to ask you to please come to the podium. This is Sydney Adams.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson, and out there, and other members of your board. I'm here to express some concerns that we have with this proposed development. I'm Dr. Sidney Adams. I reside at 206 Heritage Lane in Carriage Village and in North Fort Myers. Some of our concerns are the proposed Florida Department of Transportation's changes that they're making to Bayshore Drive. They're eliminating the left turn, their center left-right turn lane, and they're only making a left turn lanes at traffic lights. So that would make our residents have to go clear to up to the traffic light to make a left turn and make a U-turn and come back down. If they want to come home, they would have to, they would be able to come in the regular way. Our concerns are the traffic that this is going to cause, not only, from the change in the road, but the change in the population of the area, and that this is going to increase the flow of traffic. I don't remember now exactly how many units there was going to be there, but everybody, I understand, has 2 parking spaces. And in today's lifestyle, we spend most of our time working, and most of the time it takes 2 people to survive comfortably. And so this is going to increase that a lot. So when buses or trucks or buses or school buses come and stop, you know, that's going to back traffic up to both directions, Kirk up to Old Bridge Drive, and that you can come by there anytime at 5 o'clock in the evening, and you'll see exactly what I mean. And then if you eliminate that left turn lane, that's going to put all those left turn laners over into that normal flow of traffic and this sort of thing. The entrance to this is, as we saw, is going to create problems for like a ladder truck, a fire ladder truck getting in, because if you're going to have a 4-story building, you're going to have a ladder truck able to get into the driveway or get into the entrance and out. There's additional garbage pickup, the recycling pickup, and then the diagram you showed for the trees to block the view, that's fine if you're standing right next to the building. But if you get 150 yards away, and you don't even have to get that far, you'll be looking right down into some of our residents' yards, into their units, and eliminating a certain amount of their privacy and this sort of thing. So that's another high interest of or concern that we have for and that. There's no barrier or no wall being planned that would keep, help reduce the sound and this sort of stuff. There's no amenities planned for this building, so and they're bound to have children, and they're going to look over there and say, oh, they got a pool over there, and we'll sneak over there tonight and go swimming and that sort of thing. So there's not going to be any barrier that's going to keep them from just coming right across the properties and that into the, so there's going to be high theft, possible high theft and crime committed in that area. We already have enough problems with that without the addition of this building and that there. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming, sir. Ron Davis. Colleen Arnold and Stephen Arnold. Kevin Bostick Jr. Michelle Latour. Good morning.
My name is Michelle Latore. I'm at 158 Santa Fe Trail, and our unit backs directly up to the northwest end of this property. I have a flash drive of an accumulation of photographs, so when I get to this area of the gopher tortoises, I believe that our neighbor already took some pictures, but there has been additional photographs, and I put it on a flash drive. I don't know if you can look at that or not.
Just for safety reasons, in terms of potential viruses and stuff, we, no offense intended, take flash drives.
Okay. We can provide that somehow if you give us the opportunity to send those.
Okay.
Maybe email or something. He touched on some of the issues that we are concerned about. I think, again, the lack of barrier, fencing. We've had several units. Obviously, half of the community is full-time, and the other half are snowbirds. And I know at some point there have been break-ins of some of these homes that the people have left up north, and they've been squatters. inside these our neighbors. The foot traffic is a problem as well. We already have that. And so our biggest issue, again, is we've had robberies of golf carts, et cetera. So we'd love to see at least like a block wall of some sort put up, at least surrounding or where the property is adjacent to CVLA. Again, the height of the units are really not compatible to the area. We took a drive and looked around. There are no other buildings within 2.5 miles perimeter of us with buildings of this height. Privacy with, again, people standing on a third or fourth balcony looking over is with the brush and some trees that are only going to be 10 or 15 feet would not obscure enough of that, especially at that height. If they could possibly keep more of the natural habitat and some of the taller trees, that would help provide more privacy. Or if they keep the current zoning, which would keep the height of the units at 2 stories and would be beneficial for a lot of these problems, especially for the traffic out on Bayshore. There's the medians that will be going in from Hart Road to Evelina that, from what we understand from the FDOT meeting, they're going to begin that sometime at the end of this year. They'd like to complete that by fall of 2024. And the traffic models were from 2015 to 2019, and they do not reflect the growth in the area since then. Well, they've got the Del Webb Oak Creek, which they have, that's a 55-plus community, 821 homes that will be built, which is 4 miles east of us. Spring at Coral Shores is another multifamily development. That's 4 miles west of us. They have 319 units. And another 1.5 miles further west is another multifamily development of 189 units called the Strand at Judd Creek. I'm not quite sure where all this traffic is going to go to because FDOT, from my understanding, does not have any works in their plans to widen Bayshore. So it's just going to, everything is just going to bottleneck and just back up farther. He touched on the emergency vehicles. That is true if you've got a 4-story building. How are they going to get the ladder trucks in? I know that was addressed, and I don't know if they have something new information for us, but that would be good to know about. We did take those pictures. The pictures that I have are a collection from February 12th to present. And what our biggest concern is that they won't be properly counted, the gopher tortoises and the burrows. And then once excavation begins, due to the lack of the proper count, they'll just be bulldozed over. What we'd like to see is the developer have the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission accurately assess the population and provide proof that they've hired a licensed authority for appropriate resettling per Florida state law. The adding of a play area for the kids is, something else we asked about. I don't know if they've got something new to talk about today. And then the school buses, are the kids going to be picked up within the community or the area that they're living in, or are they going to have to go out to Bayshore and be picked up out there? And what are their plans for traffic build backed up for that? Other than that, if we could get the pictures to you at a later date, let me know how to do that.
I may leave the written record open maybe for a few days, depending, and then I have to ask that you provide copy, or will provide copy, but I'm assuming they're pictures similar to this showing gopher tortoises.
Correct.
So these are pictures from when you trespassed on the subject property?
This is from prior to that.
Are these pictures on the subject property?
They are on the subject property. There were no signs saying there was no trespassing at the time.
Okay.
at the time.
Neil, can we keep moving? Do you have anything else to say?
No.
Okay, thank you very much, Michelle. Gary Griffin? Ben Foster? Ken Eaton? Ivan Lamb?
I have no comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Alice Lockman? Kathleen Cawley? Greg Foy? Did I call him already? Rhonda White? Carol Robinson? Denise Sexton? Linda Jarrell? Would you like to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, please come to the podium. Thank you.
My name is Linda Gerald. I live at 106 Carriage Lane at Carriage Village. I live right on Bayshore Road. There's a bunch of houses that are on that little strip of land that they say they're going to take part of the shrubbery out and they're going to put new trees and shrubs in. Well, it's going to take a while for them to grow. And if they take out what's there now, people will be able to walk right through our yards. And if they see our pool, they're going to go in. We do have wristbands and that have to be worn, but people have been sneaking in. And I think that's going to, plus when they talked about the crime, they could easily have access to come into our park. I don't know what the cost of the trees and the shrubs compared to a wall. And because in our village, we're not allowed to have anything over 4 foot. It's 4 feet. Yeah, if you have a 6 foot or taller fence, you can't have it. And then if they do what they do, all those people on that side are going to have a cost of putting fences in, but they'd only be 4 foot, which people could easily go over. And my concern is the privacy, of course. I'm used to the noise. I'm used to the noise of the traffic, but the shrubbery in there that's now is just wild, is really helping with that. But if they take that away, you know, we're going to be hearing all those cars and trucks and everything else, you know, going by. That is my concern. I also do have a concern about the turtles. Some people have them in our backyards already, so which means it's a large group, and if they are only going to be moving a portion of them, then what happens to the other ones? Because they stated at the last meeting something about 15 of them, and it does cost a lot of money, but we know that there's probably more than 15 of them in there. I have not been on the property. Well, yeah, I was on the property once because my dog was lost. And I know that the, how can I say this? The people that don't have homes, they had tents and everything back there, and I went back to see if they might have had my dog. So I was on the property, you know, but that was my reason. Okay, I thank you very much for hearing me, and that's my concerns.
Thank you very much. Bev Foster. Susan Fritsch. Mike and Bernadine Walekovich. Okay. Mike and Bernadine that's a duplicate. Okay. Here. This just says Barbara.
I didn't put my last name on there.
No. If you can spell it for Barbara, we're friends now. So come on up.
It's
If you could just,
well, everybody calls me Barbie also. It's
can you spell your last name, please?
It's D-E, B like boy, O-E-R. And I reside at 154 Santa Fe Trail, North Fort Myers, Florida. I started to put Barbie and then I thought that's kind of too personal. But that's how everybody knows me. I'm short and sweet here. I can actually see the turtles from my property as they cross my property. And they also burrow in my property, in my yard, which I don't like that very well, but what can you do about it, right? I try to encourage them by, leave, go where, back in that land, but sometimes they don't behave. So, kind of like my dog. Anyhow, I beg of you to please think about all these situations on this rezoning, because it really is a dangerous thing, and it's very dangerous for all the people that's coming and all the people that live there. And also, it's such a small area there. We have like 400 people in our park, and I understand there's going to be 400 people that's coming. So for that many people in such a small area, I just want you to think about how dangerous that can be in that small area. Again, I want to touch on the children that will have no place to play. And you know that this more than likely they will infringe on our facilities. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pam Griffin. That's the last speaker I have.
Hi, my name's Pam Griffin. I live at 160 Santa Fe Trail. I butt right up against the land that's in this proposal. And all that I want to say is we moved to Florida for the sunshine and warmth weather. We picked a location where all the homes and businesses are one story. Everything's one story high. Now a group wants to put up 4 apartments, buildings 4-story highs. They're 30 to 150 feet from our backyards. If we actually put this in perspective, an Olympic-sized pool, the length of it is 164 feet. Now, if we go the 30 feet, the pickup trucks with extended cabs on our roads, they are 24 feet. This is very close. We have our property over there that now we could be having our morning and mid-morning sunshine blocked from 4 stories. The noise in our backyards, I would honestly think that they should be, putting a big enough area for their surroundings. I mean, place them with other 3 or 4 story buildings in a location that isn't built up. They don't even want to put a fence around. Again, we're talking 30 feet to 150 feet. I want to say about the gopher tortoises, though. We had a turtle biologist at our home because of one of your turtles on that property came on over to our yard and decided to take up residence underneath my house. Okay, this turtle biologist, naturally you have to have permits. You have to have all this. It was taken out from underneath our house. Okay, they could not take that turtle and relocate that turtle in any other area. They decided to keep it right in this area because of all the tortoises that live in that 9.3 acres behind the house. And all that I gotta say is that we do not have to trespass on your property. These turtles come into our yard on a regular basis. In the morning, I can have 3 to 5 turtles out there every day. They cross our roads, they go out, they come right back. Now, I was told it's from the smell of their urine on where they know where to go. But all that I'm saying is that I really feel as if these apartments should be sized towards the area, not towards the living area. Keep it within the prospects of the whole area in general. And I thank you for your time.
Very much. That was the last speaker. Is there anyone else in the audience that did not fill out a card that would like to speak?
I had to leave last time, and I had one filled out. So that should have been in the pile from the previous one.
And I didn't call your name?
No, Shauna Kane.
Come on up.
I'll give you this one.
And I apologize for that.
Sure.
I thought we went through and there's a lot of papers.
I saw that.
Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. I really appreciate the chance to speak. My name is Shauna Kane, and I live at 210 Carriage Lane. My property backs up to the middle of this project. I will try not to speak on the things that other people have already brought up. I moved into Carriage Village 4 years ago, and I ended up paying $5,000 over the asking price so I could have that backyard. Now I'm not going to have that backyard. That height, that sight line that they showed, I don't think is accurate. I'm going to have people staring into my home, into my windows. You know, when I moved in, there was homeless people living on that property, and they said they get to live there until the owner puts up a no trespassing. And they didn't put the no trespassing. I had, you know, they said, please watch my house when I leave for the summer, or the winter, summer, because we don't want them taking my water, using my water, turning the water on. I found that terrifying, to know that people may be coming into my backyard. Eventually, the owner did put a no trespassing, and we hadn't had for a while any homeless people living there. Apparently, they're back. Also, what I heard when I first moved in is that there was a possibility of a strip mall. Okay, what happened to the strip mall? Now you want to put a 4-story building with 400 times 2, 800, is it 400 units? With possibly 2 people, that's 800 more people. About 2 years ago, one of our full-time residents was killed coming in on his bike into our property, which started our process of reopening our back gate because we were having so much trouble getting out, and especially coming in, coming east to take a left turn into Carriage Village. If FDOT takes away that turn lane, that's all of us going down to make a U-turn. How are these emergency vehicles going to get in here? You know, we have a 55-plus neighborhood. We have ambulances and fire trucks in there weekly, you know? We spent 2 years getting our gate open at a cost of $35,000 to get that back gate open so that we can get out safely. That new development, they have no option to open a gate. They're gonna have one entrance. Yesterday, I was coming home, I was taking a left turn. I had to wait for a whole traffic light, because after the traffic light, we've got right turners on coming off of Hart. So I waited for a whole cycle, which, by the way, it was like trucks, mostly trucks that have to slow, or, you know, it takes a while to get their speed up. So this is already a problem getting in. Someone spoke of 3 large properties that are coming in this week on the news. There's another one, another mobile home park that's gonna go up in North Fort Myers. So that's 4 that are already approved. The traffic numbers are really understated. I just don't see how it can hold any more traffic there. I'm very concerned about the trucks. There are so many trucks coming west in the morning and going east in the afternoon. So I just feel this is an inappropriate plan. I want to know what happened to the strip mall. That space is too small. There are many costs for the developer that are very expensive to squeeze this huge development into a little sliver of land. I have turtles, as they spoke about, in my yard every single day. And somebody is marking the turtles. And I have seen 2 on the back of a turtle. I've seen up to 18 on a turtle. Just this week, 2 of our residents brought baby turtles to let loose in my property to go into that area. So it is very understated how many turtles there are there. When I first moved in 4 years ago, only 23% of our residents were full-time. We are up to 44%. So it just keeps growing. I don't want to cover all the other things that people have already spoken about, but I don't remember hearing about what their evacuation plan was going to be, and also if someone could touch on, maybe you did, but is this going to be built hurricane construction? And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for coming. Is there anyone else present that has not spoken that would like an opportunity to speak? Public input is now closed, and we're back to the parties. There were a number of issues raised by the public, requests for clarification, so I encourage you to incorporate that into your presentation. I also asked for some additional information on a few items, so I'm going to let the parties decide who's going to speak first and what they're going to say, and I'm here to listen.
Ron, did you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
If there's a new PowerPoint, I'd like a copy so I can enter it into the record.
First witness will be Mr. Keene. He was previously sworn. He's got a copy. He's got a big copy, so you can do more writing.
This will be applicant Exhibit 7. This is your second PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Excuse me, I got a few things to give you, and I just,
Okay,
take me a moment.
time. Thank you. this is this a
This is
revised?
the revised master concept plan. And here's a 24 by 36 if you have trouble seeing.
Okay,
anything on
give me a second here.
They're the same thing.
Okay, this will be, this is the revised master concept
Correct.
plan?
Correct. And we previously provided a copy to staff.
And the date on this is,
4/28/23.
and this is an enlarged copy?
Correct.
Okay, so the revised master concept plan will be Exhibit 8, and the enlarged copy will be Exhibit 9. Thank you for the enlarged copy. 4/28/23. Okay,
Here's the same master concept plan.
superimposed.
Superimposed on an area. Sure, my apologies.
Exhibit 9, MCP over aerial.
I'm
that
sorry I didn't bring
everything?
an enlarged copy of that. I can get you an enlarged copy of that if you'd like.
This is fine.
Okay.
Would you restate your name for the record?
For the record, Tim Keene, Keene Development. I'm the civil engineer for the project. I prepared the site plans. I'm a professional engineer here in Lee County, and I've been sworn as I've been proffered as an expert witness in this forum previously. So we have heard a lot of the comments, and we primarily went back and looked at our master concept plan, and try to, we try to address a lot of the comments that were made in the prior hearing, and then I think some of them address the comments, some of the comments that were made this morning. The main thing that we did is we've added an amenity area. It's in the middle of the project, right here. On our prior master, it's right here in the middle of the project, right there. On our prior project, this east building only had 36 units in it, so but it was still 4 stories. It was just shown a little bigger, so we moved some of the units between these 2 buildings so that we could put that amenity area right in the center. We felt it was an important location to place it there since it was central to all the units in the project, and it would also be buffered by the buildings from the surrounding property owners. The other thing that we did is I restudied this entrance. I restudied the entrance. And we were able to adjust the entrance in a couple of ways. And it really has to do, and this is going to be a little affected about when the median project might happen. It's scheduled for a certain time. Will this project, if this project is approved, will it be built before then? Will it be built after the median project? So that's the 2 things kind of interrelate, and it has to do with the alignment with the street across Bayshore Road. So I double in the current configuration without the FDOT median project. I restudied the alignment. I was able to shift our entrance a little west to increase the buffer between our entrance and this adjoining home right here. So we've gone from, I think 8 feet was our last request, and now we're at 12 feet at the pinch point. And I have a revised schedule of deviation.
Is this applicant Exhibit 10? This has been shared with county staff?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so explain to me what's changed.
The only thing that's changed as far as the schedule of deviations is deviation number 2, which deals with this dimension between the wall and that common corner. And it's sort of a triangular problem. We just have one small area that kind of pinches right there. So that normally in this situation, that wall would have to be 25 feet from that point. But because we have to align the driveways, without the FDOT median, we have a little bit of a problem right there. If the median is constructed when we come in, then this driveway can be moved a little further west and we can meet the code requirement of 25 feet. So today we have to align because of, and it has to do with safety for left turn out. So you got a left turn, someone coming out here making a left and someone coming out of the opposite street making a left.
Don't misunderstand, I'm not trying to redesign your project, I just have a question.
Yeah.
In terms of your election to put the access point at this location versus aligned with Washington Drive.
Okay, so on my plan, I've got 2 dimensions. I got a dimension here and I got a dimension here. And I'll speak about the FDOT spacing requirements, but this is the only location that currently meets FDOT spacing requirements.
Because of the access to the west?
Because of this driveway and then Carriage Lane, the entrance to Carriage Lane, there are minimum separation requirements. If we align with the other street, then we have a separation requirement with Shirley, I think is the name of this street. And so we did study that. There's a bus stop there, but the bus stop could easily be relocated. That's not the issue. So, but I'll come to a point, we'll talk a little more about the FDOT project.
Just so that I understand, if the project is constructed prior to the median construction, the entrance will align with the Lincoln Avenue.
Yeah.
But if the median is installed prior to commencement of construction, the plan is to shift the access.
Yeah, we
to the
can
west,
then shift it. We don't need the deviation. This driveway can be shifted and we can meet the buffer
and
requirement.
you'll meet the separation.
And we can still meet the separation requirements, yeah.
Okay, so are you proposing a condition to that effect? Or?
We didn't propose a condition, but we are amenable to a condition. We don't have any objection to that.
Okay,
I guess I'm just trying to say that we don't really have a choice in this location at the moment. And we've proffered a wall and some increased landscaping right here to kind of mitigate the problem.
so refresh my memory. Once the median barrier is installed, it's going to run from,
If we wait a second,
Yeah, I'll come back to that because I've got some
graphics on
exhibits
that, you'll be able to see it.
that'll very much help you understand the median project. Let me just. All right, so we have the aerial overlaid. The master concept plan overlaid on the aerial. I'm going to bring. Let me see. I'll jump forward on the median question.
well, I'm not trying to interrupt your flow if you're going to.
No, it's okay. We can, it's important. Everybody seems to be very interested in that. So, okay. So this is the FDOT median project as it currently stands. Right now, in the project, it's just from Hart Road to Evelina, I think over here. Lee County Co-op's office is right here. They have all their main office. It's a big building, and all their storage yard and everything is right there. So right now they're proposing to put a westbound directional left into Washington, and then a eastbound directional left into Shirley. And everything else would be concrete barrier, except for a little spot of grass right here. This is pretty wide. I'm not certain why they have concrete barrier here. This is a full lane width right here. A little blow up of the red arrow is approximately where our entrance would come in. Now, this is the FDOT driveway spacing requirement. This is out of their access management workbook. So this right here, we're a class 5 road. We're posted at 50 miles an hour. So our driveway spacing is 440 feet. That's what when we couldn't align with Washington, that's the problem, is the 440 foot. If there's a median, we can actually apply to have a directional left into our project. So what that would look like is this driveway, and we've already had, and Ted Treese can speak to this if necessary, we've already, because he spoke to FDOT about this, if they move forward with this project, it's going to be in this configuration, but we can relocate this directional left to Lincoln and put a corresponding directional left to the north. And that directional left doesn't have to be right up against Lincoln. You know, if this entrance, in that situation when the median is there, our entrance can move slightly west, and we can put it wherever the directional left functions best. So our entrance would be entitled under the FDOT spacing requirements to a eastbound directional left into the project. That would eliminate our traffic from U-turning at Hart Road. It would address a lot of the concerns. I mean, we cannot solve Carriage Village's problems with not being able to get into their project. They do have a solution that's available to them, but it costs money. So, and I don't know who would be responsible for that. I don't think the problem they have is unrelated to this project or whatever happens on this project of their traffic trying to U-turn to get back into their project. It has to do with their entrance on Hart Road. So this is their rear entrance.
Okay, folks, if you would like to speak, please step outside if you need to discuss anything with your neighbor. I'm trying to concentrate, and it's difficult when I have a lot of background noise.
So this is the rear entrance that they paid, you know, nicely to put in. The rear exit, not an entrance, it's an exit onto Hart Road. This gives them access to the traffic light at Hart Road and Bayshore Road. This is looking at it from an aerial view. The problem they have, and Ted Treese spoke with Lee County DOT about this. The problem they have is because Hart Road is a collector road, if they were to have a full entrance in there, they would have to construct a turn lane on Hart Road. So that's a pretty substantial expense. But they have the ability at some cost to create a full second entrance into their project.
So you're saying that based on the traffic volumes that would use that as an access, that would trigger a site-related improvement in the form of a decel lane or
a left turn lane, a northbound left turn lane. It'd be whatever the normal distance is for left turn lanes. It would have you'd have to widen the road.
So people would leave Conestoga Trail and head north?
No, not exiting. I'm sorry, not exiting.
In.
This is to get back into.
I understand. Okay.
Instead of U-turning at Bayshore and Hart, they could turn onto Hart, make a left onto Hart, come up to Conestoga, and make a left into their subdivision.
And what you're saying is there would need to be a left turn lane approaching Conestoga?
Correct, a northbound left turn lane on Hart Road because it's a collector road. So that, you know, we obviously haven't done traffic counts or analysis or things like that, but we think that was the concern. They have an LDO approved for this exit, and I think that seemed to be the discussion in the LDO, is that if this was a full access, they would have to have this left turn lane.
But it could be an exit only.
It is today. It is today.
Back to the picture so you can show.
That's what they have today. So this is what they did. They are working proactively to help solve their problem, because the problem they have is trying to get out of Carriage Lane to go east, making the left onto Bayshore is unsignalized. So they've put in this rear exit so they can go to Hart Road to make a left onto Bayshore. So they've done some self-help. There's an additional solution that would address a lot of their worries about the median project. but it costs more money.
Right, because they don't, right, with this self-help, they still don't have the option of a left in to their.
Correct. Unfortunately, their driveway would not, it wouldn't meet the FDOT spacing requirement. We can help not, we can take action to not aggravate the problem that's coming for them by putting in a directional left turn lane. And we meet the spacing requirements for that.
But it looked like the FDOT's map already shows a directional left going the other way.
Correct. And that can be moved because our directional left could meet the spacing requirements. And this is the discussion that we're having with FDOT right now. It's about shifting this here.
Okay.
And I don't have a bigger picture showing the neighborhood across the street, but all of this whole neighborhood, all of these roads interconnect. There's an east-west road down here, so all of these neighborhoods interconnect. So I just don't think they connect well over to Hart Road, which is why this left-bound lane is being proposed.
And do we have an estimate of FDOT's timing for these changes?
I think it, maybe I'll have Ted come up and say that, but because he did speak with Chris Beast with FDOT, the project manager with FDOT, I think it is 2025, something like that, when the construction may happen.
And you anticipate that there's a likelihood your project will commence development prior to that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Interest rates keep going up.
So there's, okay.
You know,
But this is what it would be if your project isn't underway and you're not able to make that change?
this is what it might likely be built as. But FDOT so far is agreeable that if that happens, we would be able to relocate. I mean, it'd be nicer if they built it here, but I don't know that we can affect that change this quickly. But we would have the ability to change this configuration to give us an eastbound left turn lane. And the
purpose of all these changes is what? To protect the traveling capacity on the roadway by
FDOT?
turning movements?
So FDOT, they have an analysis of why do the project. And for them, it's this bi-directional left turn lane. A lot of people call it a suicide lane, where you have a lot of head-on, not necessarily head-on crashes, but you have a lot of head-on turning conflicts when you've got this bi-directional left turn lane. And I think that they find that that's a safety issue. I think this project may have been longer at some point, but they've whittled it down to just between these two traffic lights. It does have the effect of increasing throughput on the traveling road, the capacity, by limiting access. But I think their main justification is it's a safety improvement, which is a little odd because, you know, from Carriage Village's perspective, this is less safe for them. You know, that's their worry, is that this U-turn is less safe than the current condition for them. So it's the greater good theory for FDOT. All right, so I'm going to go back, and we're going to go back to, I'll just go through my presentation, and then we're going to come back to buffering. So one of the questions was about fire protection and whether the buildings were going to be sprinklered. So multifamily buildings under the Florida Building Code are classed as a group R2. Hit the wrong button. Group R buildings are required to be fire sprinklered. The site has a 12-inch water main along the front of the parcel from Lee County Utilities. And as is normal, we would extend water mains into the project and have fire hydrants and water services and fire line connections, et cetera. We did model the site for a ladder truck vehicle, and typically the ladder truck that we use is the San Carlos Park. They have a 100-foot ladder truck, which is the biggest have mutual aid agreements between the fire departments, so the biggest truck that we use is the one that's possible, could come here and do. So that's a 100-foot ladder truck, and we show how it can traverse easily through the project. We do show a gated entrance. The gated entrances would have evac radios on the project, or evac radios which would allow fire trucks and EMS and so forth to open the gates automatically as they approach. It's a standard requirement on any gate these days. I spoke earlier about how we reanalyze the entrance. So under the Land Development Code, we use a standard unit vehicle. This is per the LDC, and we show how this vehicle can make a full U-turn in our entrance. We widened this entrance north-south. We did not ask for a deviation to basically make like a K-turn, but that would shave a little bit of room off this. But this is a very wide and ample entrance. This is sort of a showing, these are small cars showing how many vehicles. This kind of helps give you an actual perspective of how big this entrance actually is. There's a lot of worry that was expressed about, if the gates aren't working and people are stacking up into the road, well, they could easily make a U-turn as demonstrated. But there's a lot of stacking. I don't think this project would ever see this many vehicles parked outside of its entrance. The same section in the code that has the requirement for the standard unit vehicle analysis also has a requirement that the gates be at least 100 foot from the right-of-way, and this is far in excess of that requirement. Again, we talked previously, this is an accessory gate. This could have evac radios or what we call Knox locks, which are locks that only EMS and fire and police have the key to for secondary access. If there's some problem here, there's actually a secondary way to get in, and this is part of one of the deviations we discussed in the prior meeting. And we have it's actually we have letters of support for having a single entrance from the fire department, from the sheriff's department, from the Lee County Emergency Services Department. It's required that they support the deviation, which they have.
So they have the option of going through the main gate with their special access code.
Correct.
Or this alternate gate.
Correct. And the evac radio process, and I maybe didn't mention this, but the evac radio requirement requires that the openers carry batteries in the opener, the motor controller that moves the opener. So it has enough battery capacity, if there's, in the event of a power failure even, that they can come up here and hit the evac radio and the gate would still open on its own, even if there was no power after a hurricane or something like that. So it's very unlikely, we've got 3 gates here, it's very unlikely they would all have a problem, but if they did, this one could be opened with a key, or it could have an automatic opener on it. I'm showing it as swing gates because I did not show it as an automatic opener, because what would likely happen is it would never get used and the device wouldn't work when you wanted it. It wouldn't get exercised. So it's probably, in my opinion, it's better that it's safer to have a Knox lock on it. They make special padlocks that have special keys.
Wait, before you leave that, let me
Yes.
ask you a question, Tim. Does this meet or exceed the county stacking requirements?
It exceeds the county stacking requirements.
2 times it. 2 times the requirement?
The county stacking requirement is 100 foot. I don't know, I know this is more than 100 foot, but I can't give you the exact
Okay.
footage. It's 1.5 at least. It could be close to 2. Between 1.5 and 2, that distance is probably between 1.5 and 2 times the
Okay.
county minimum.
Thank you.
There was some discussion last time about where we're going to get our sewer. Some of these neighborhoods on the south side still have septic systems. There's no gravity sewer over here. There's a large force main. This is right over in front of the Lee County Electric Co-op's office. There's a large force main here. There's also a force main at Hart Road. either way, we would be able to install a force main from this site. Our most likely path would be to come down this piece of right-of-way here. We've investigated this right-of-way for other utilities and so forth. And because the road was relocated, when Bayshore Road was widened, they and you can see these clipped parcels and things like that on the north side. Even this parcel that we're talking about today was wider on the north side before the widening of Bayshore, but that left room in the right-of-way for an easy force main path. And I previously mentioned that there's a Lee County 12-inch DIP water main right in front of our parcel, which would give us plenty of water capacity for this project. The main sewer plant, this is the Powell Creek bypass, and the main sewer plant for this area sits at the back of Suncoast Estates, and Hart Road leads into Suncoast Estates. So obviously it's maybe about a mile north is the main sewer plant. It was built by North Fort Myers Utilities and now is owned by FGUA. So they're their sewer provider for this area. I think eventually that will become Lee County Utilities.
And Tim, the information that you have shown up there from FDOT, if the hearing examiner wanted to, that information is available online on FDOT's website?
Correct. Well, it's in various capacities, yeah. You'd have to search for it to download the document, but it's an FDOT manual on space access management guidelines. Spoken pretty much on all of these items. Flood zone. So we just had a hurricane. There's new maps that have been in the works, but they came into adoption in November. There's a new flood zone for this area. Previously, only the little corner of the project was within a flood zone. Now this whole area is in a flood zone.
What does the shading mean? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, so the orange are things that are out of the flood zone. The cyan are things that are in the flood zone. This map is a little different. This area over here is zone AE, but we've got, when you get closer to this bypass, the elevations increase. Lee County has a tool in their GIS system where you can pick a parcel and it'll tell you what the flood zone map is. And I think if the tool was built so the building department could easily determine what a flood zone is on a piece of property. And we think that it says 11.5 is what the flood zone is for this property, that tool.
So it's A 11.5?
Yeah. To make it simple, that's what it is. But this really isn't that perfectly simple. And the reason we have things south of the road outside of the flood zone and things north of the road in the flood zone is because Bayshore Road is acting as a bit of a dam. We have the Powell Creek bypass bringing water this way, and it will overbank this area here in the models.
So those little,
These little pieces right here,
yeah, what is that?
that's area that is out of the flood zone.
So they're just little high areas?
Yeah. So Lee County uses LiDAR. They've got LiDAR that they've flown. And this is off the Lee County GIS system. I just took a screen snip of it. This is their LiDAR elevations, and these are the things that go into their models. I presume that this is shared with the consultants that work for FEMA to produce the flood zone models. So, this kind of tells us, you can see 11, 10.3, 9.7, 10.4. So 9.5 to 10 feet would be maybe the average grade of this site.
So it would have to be raised up at least to 11.5?
Well, Chapter 2 of the building code, of the land development code requires we build a foot above that even. So 12.5 would be the minimum finished floor. So,
And height is measured from that?
building height is measured from finished floor. and this is an important point to make, because we have revised our buffer diagrams, and we have taken that 3 foot of fill into consideration in the illustrations that we've provided.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure we weren't ignoring that fact that these buildings will have to be filled. This LiDAR kind of gives us some interesting perspective, and it has to do with kind of the vintage of everything. You can see, from outside, our parcel in here, Carriage Village has some low areas in here where their road is built. But it's, as a site engineer, this is unusual. Everything is about the same elevation. This is about the same elevation, all total. We don't see any. This isn't the low piece. If this area were newer, this would be the low piece, because everybody would have filled to put in their water management systems. Because that's what we have to do today. In order to build our water management systems and have retention areas, we have to fill our land to put the water in our ponds to create freeboard. Which this is the last guy in, so he's going to have to fill. He's got to put in his water management systems. The surrounding neighbors unfortunately don't have. They may have drainage facilities, but they don't have water management systems, in the sense they don't have detention systems and stormwater treatment features built into their subdivisions. It's just the time frame, the time frame when they were built. So minimum finished floor 12.5, approximately 3 foot above existing grade. This is. You heard some testimony in the last hearing about some drainage problems inside of Carriage Village. You can see their roads. You see these white stripes down their roads. This is a concrete valley gutter down the middle of the roads, where they are using that to convey their drainage. In a couple of spots, it comes over, it goes down a pipe, and then it goes through some perimeter. This is a small concrete ditch that is on Carriage Village. Over here, they actually have a pipe. There are inlets right at the property line, and there's a pipe that goes west, and then it has a little kick north, I think, and then it goes into the Powell Creek bypass. So their drainage is not onto this piece of property. They bring this over here, conveys. We'll have some photographs. We'll show you some photographs that gives a little more information on that. But this is the big picture. It relates to this particular LiDAR image, because you don't see any grades, any drainage. They were not constructed to drain into this parcel. When we build, it would have been nice if we could hop into their pipe, but that pipe is not very large. There'd be no way that we could add into that pipe and get over to Powell Creek. We will come into the right of way of FDOT, and this would likely go towards the east to another conveyance past Hart Road that goes south to the river.
So Tim, let me interrupt you here. There were several gentlemen that lived to the north of the property in particular, who were concerned that the development of this property would exacerbate their standing water flooding problem. And you've gone back out and physically looked at the site and done drone flyovers and everything.
Yes, we do have a drone video that shows it, that we can provide, that we've flown around the property several times to give you a perspective. It's on the disc that we gave Sharam. This property, in my opinion, is high and dry. As an engineer, this is a very dry parcel. There's no depressional areas. It's very dry. It's very sandy. It's well drained. We heard the problems inside of Carriage Village. I think the problems inside of Carriage Village has to do with a instantaneous flow problem. When they get a really hard rainfall, the water can't get out quick enough. Their facilities are fairly small. They collect the water in their roads, so all the instant runoff is going to collect in their roads and block their roads until it can drain out of the roads. We'll show you a photograph. Over here, they've got their concrete flume, and then there's a pipe that brings it to their entrance and down to State Road 80, and they actually have some pumps there where they're pumping the water out of the pipe that comes from the road to get it more quickly into State Road 80. So you heard some testimony previously that they have a pump discharge. Well, it's informal, sump pumps. Go to the home store, buy a pump you plug in to an outlet. That it's just a collection of small pumps that they're using to help drain their roads quicker. Has nothing to do with this piece of property, and our construction will not aggravate that situation. I'm going to go back. We're going to go back and do the buffer section now. I'm going to ask Josh to come up and help with that.
Well, before you do that,
Okay.
you might have mentioned it, but you went through the changes in the master concept plan,
Yeah, I can.
and you might have said reduced building height, but I don't know that I heard you.
Okay, we did not get there. I apologize. One of the things that we did go back and look at, and I'll just jump, I'm sorry to jump around on this. One of the things that we did go back and look at is we looked at our floor-to-floor elevations in our modeling. I'd had 12-foot per floor in here previously. We don't need 12-foot per floor. We could get a 9-foot ceiling and have enough room for our structure between the floors. So we're reducing our requested building height to 52 feet.
This is coming to me on something.
On your PowerPoint at the top, it says reduce building height from 60 to 52. It's just, we got sidetracked on the FDOT.
Okay, I may ask for, leave the record open so together you can provide me a new set of conditions with the property development regulation.
Okay.
I do need to apologize. I did write up a new property development regulations. I neglected to print it out
Okay.
with everything else that I
This-
I have a
printed.
copy here.
You have a copy? Awesome. Is that the revised one, Saram?
That's the revised one showing 52.
Yes.
The only thing
We did a,
recommend is get to number, not number 2. And we have to measure building requirements for land development code. It goes without saying.
yeah, there's a footnote on there that addresses how it's, we label, there's a footnote number 2. Footnote number 2 says that it just references the 2 code sections that, on how we,
Which really is not necessary there.
you saying footnote number 2 is not necessary?
Yeah, I mean, we are saying we're gonna comply with the code. That goes without saying. We have to comply.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure it was obvious.
I don't see a footnote 2 on this, I only see a footnote 1. Oh, I see it,
Big two.
but then there's no footnote.
Well,
Oh, there it is.
it's right there.
Yeah, but then where's the footnote?
I'm
I'm gonna leave the record open.
I saw that
They're
coming.
notes, they're not footnotes.
No, because sometimes when we make these changes and then there's so many papers and then I release my recommendation and
There's a mistake, yeah.
there's a
We
mistake.
want to make sure what you attach is correct.
Yeah, what you have there is the revised development regulations. Thank you, Sharon, for printing that out. I got distracted with everything else that I was printing.
So height has been reduced from 60 to 52?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, from 60 feet to 52 feet.
And
And
setbacks are maintained?
setbacks did not change. We did not change any setbacks. We do have a so the staff report has one set of recommendations. Our 48-hour letter, we went from, his recommendation was 40 feet. Our 48-hour letter was 40 feet to 40 feet and 40 feet in height. I think it's written in there, footnote number 2, footnote number 1 on the sheet that you have. Maximum of 40 feet at a 40-foot setback, and then a 1-to-1 increase from there. Our built up to 60 foot, and then at 60 foot, we would, and this, it was the 60 matched the prior 60 request. We're not changing that, though, the 60-foot setback. So it'd be 52 feet at 60 feet. So 52 feet, 60 feet. This is the property line. So,
Doesn't really read that way.
Or I can do it during my testimony.
look at the email that I sent out on Monday.
That's what we did in our 48-hour letter with the setback, though. I know,
Yeah, let me just read that into the record. All right, so what we put in our 48-hour letter, the staff report recommendation was a minimum building setback of 40 feet. and we were agreeable to 40 feet. So the footnote, or in the 48-hour letter, we said the minimum setback will be 40 feet for buildings up to 40 feet. The minimum setback will increase by 1 foot for each foot of increased building setback above 40 feet to a maximum height of 60 feet. Now that's been changed to 52 feet.
And so that's how the standard, like RN2 district works,
And
that you
the
can increase your.
setback you are showing 60 should be 50.
Right, you're showing 60 on the exhibit though, so is that should be 52?
Yeah, no, we're okay. This is 60. The buildings we're showing on the master concept plan are shown farther away than 60 feet.
But
So
that's
we're,
not how it reads.
we're not,
We will amend.
According to this language, it's
increase it to
52.
Yeah, so why are we having this language if it's going to be 60? Why don't we just say the setback is 60?
we are saying the setback is 60. I didn't change the setback language. What I changed was just the height language.
We will provide revised property development regulations to say 60, yes.
You may proceed.
I don't think he understands the issue. We have to change it to 60 so our line of sight is accurate.
The line of sights are accurate. Yeah, I just didn't mention.
Only if we commit to a 60-foot perimeter setback, though. Sorry.
We are committing to a 60-foot
So you'll get
perimeter
that.
setback.
Okay, so all this 40 feet, then 1 foot for every 40 feet, that's no longer, okay, very good. Simple is best.
Yeah, perimeter setback 60. That works.
Tim, can I
Okay, so
ask-
now we're talking about this exhibit. Oh, no?
Well, I want to talk about the perimeter setback and how that relates to our perimeter design. So what we've done is we've put our parking lots around the perimeter to focus the buildings to the inside. So this has to do with reducing the impacts on the surrounding properties. We did this very intentionally. We concentrated everything in the middle of the property. On the north side, we did our indigenous preserve to the north side. We're doing indigenous preserve towards Carriage Village. We're doing preserve on the stretch. You heard some testimony this morning about this stretch, the panhandle section that are between these houses that back up to Bayshore Road, these homes that back up to Bayshore Road. So we've very intentionally increased we've moved the buildings to the middle of the project very intentionally, as a design effort to out of respect and consideration for our neighbors. All right, so let me go back here, and last time you asked for illustrations of the various buffers. So Josh Kelly, and Josh can help me with this if I need him to. He prepared these illustrations of showing what a type B buffer illustration type B buffer would be. The normal multifamily to single family buffer requirement in the land development code is type B. That's not changed by the North Fort Myers regulations. The only thing on this property that is affected by North Fort Myers regulations is the right-of-way buffer. It goes from 15 to 20 feet in North Fort Myers, and our site plan respects that.
So this is the perimeter buffer with the exception of Bayshore.
Two exceptions besides Bayshore. So there's a type F buffer requirement. So in the vicinity, I told you in our site plan how we very intentionally put our parking around the perimeter to concentrate the buildings into the middle. When we do that, we trigger a different piece of the code that we now have parking within 125 feet of single family. So Carriage Village is treated as single family. So that requires either a wall at 25 feet or a 30-foot type F buffer. So it could be a type B with a wall at 25 feet or just a full type F buffer, which is what we're proposing where the parking lot is abutting the perimeter, is a type F buffer.
So this is basically on the east and west boundaries of the site.
Correct. We have some profiles of that.
To the extent existing vegetation meets tree requirement, you would supplement. If the existing trees are exotics, they'd be removed and you would plant new?
Well, there's an area that we have indigenous preserve that we're going to basically just cleared the exotics, we're not going to change the grade. But we can't do that everywhere because we've got to put in water management. So on the west boundary, for instance, we've got to put in a berm, we've got to put in a collection swale. And so any vegetation there will come out. There's not a lot there. We'll show you some photographs. There's not a.
You would have to plant what looks like this.
Well, this, yeah, exactly, a type F buffer. And the goal, at least on the areas where we have the 30-foot buffer, would be to let them grow and create lush, lush buffers. Type D buffer, this is the buffer along Bayshore Road. Pretty standard, except that it's 20 feet. Double hedgerow. This is your typical right-of-way buffer, except that the distance is increased to 20.
5 trees per 100 linear feet, double hedgerow. And that's for the length of your frontage.
Correct. We added a buffer cross-section at the lake. You asked for that. So this would be the type B buffer. So even our lake would be buffered from the adjacent properties. We are also showing a security fence around the lake. This was the subject of one of our deviations where we asked for reduced setback. We asked for reduced setback to the edge of the water. We basically have our buffer. We have our lake maintenance easement, which would be required by the Water Management District. And we also, we had shown this on our site plan to begin with, but that became a condition in the staff report, the security fence around the lake. It's something that I would recommend for all my clients in any case. Standard lake slopes. So this is along the east, this is along the north side of the property where we're doing an indigenous preserve. Our goal is to preserve any trees that are on the site. And then to my left would be Carriage Village. To the left on the screen would be Carriage Village. We would put in some perimeter stormwater control. Their drainage is roughly, their pipe on the north side, this is where they have a piped drainage and some inlets right here. We would not interrupt that. We would have a little bit of a berm to keep our stormwater on our site. This is a shallow pre-treatment area where the water is being brought around the indigenous preserve to the lake. The lake, in this view, the lake would be beyond these trees. We would enhance that buffer, that indigenous preserve area to also function as a buffer. The minimum type B buffer in this case, but it'd probably be greater than that with all the existing vegetation as well. And certainly the distance is pretty substantial. This was the building elevation that we discussed about changing our height to 52 feet. This would be along the west buffer. Most of the homeowners over here, there's only one property over here on the west side that does not have a rear fence. Most homeowners have a rear fence, chain link fence, or in one case, an actually wall. The piece of property that's right at Bayshore Road, actually, they've constructed their own wall along the property line, about 6 foot tall. This is the west buffer. So you talked about keeping the trees in the buffer, so we had proposed this. This is shown as the indigenous plan. We have some photographs of these trees. There are some large pines over there. We're going to attempt to preserve it within this buffer area towards Carriage Village would be to my right, to the screen right. We're showing a 60-foot here, but actually on our site plan, the buildings are actually further away on our site plan. We're just showing 60-foot to if something changes in the future on the site plan. I'm going to walk you through a series of photographs.
You don't need me here.
Huh? I'll call you back up. Thank you, Josh. Well.
Okay, I would like to take a break now. We've been going for an hour and a half.
Okay.
So let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 20 minutes to 11 and resume. Okay.
Is there a vending machine?
No?
Vending machine, do you know?
I know they have one inside the staff gate.
Jerome, is there a vending machine
Yeah,
I need a hit of like Diet Coke or something.
well, we have vending machine, I don't know what's.
Can I get to it, or is it, is
Yeah,
it?
come on. Every floor there is a vending machine.
Okay.
Gotta have a card.
Or a friend.
A friend, yeah.
I texted Brooke yesterday. Yeah, talking about the new horse.
Sorry about that, we got mixed up with building heights.
I was just standing up there making a team. You were looking a lot better than what was up there.
Yeah.
I'll share.
Yeah, no, that was the point that we were trying to make. Let's see. Yeah, right here, so, right there.
So that's already included?
Yes, ma'am.
That's 3
Yeah.
foot
Yeah.
in the 50.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to.
It's hard to see because
Is that added to the 52 feet?
Yeah, no, that's in.
Well, it would be 55 feet from existing.
Okay, that's what.
Yeah, I should have said it like that, but yeah.
You gotta raise it up.
She understands because we do this all the time, so I apologize for not making that clear.
Could you mention that we'd be waiting out 10 horses to do it?
Yeah, but you have to cover that cost.
My best friend was.
We wouldn't have to pay for anything we do, but we did personally go to raise. And it was,
Someone told you that because Ted thinks that there's enough room in the light. You have to pipe all the drainage. Ted felt
there is no,
Yeah, we used to run around town.
there is no.
All the cops knew us.
You saw that picture. There's a house right there. There's 2 houses right
it
here.
was open at one point.
Oh, we had several.
It's been closed for
Most of the time,
30 years.
I know, but I'm saying. I used to
remember the
think
old American department store?
I got close.
It got closed because people were coming in off
It's a used store place down by the Taco Bell.
development
Actually, where Taco Bell is now.
to get away from the light. So it was closed for safety now, which is why we made it right turn only. We are having some issues with it, but we're still struggling to get people to comply. But I don't think there's a house right there,
Yeah, I know.
you know.
But this is, I mean, your subdivision was platted.
What street did you live on?
The individual owner owned it for a long time, and we became a target.
At the end of Princeton Street. We had a nursery.
It was owned by Barnhart,
Kelly's
and
Gardens.
then he sold it to the people of Carriage.
You're awake?
Just forget what someone's talking about. Doesn't affect anything.
Do anything to Mr. Davis?
This year in December.
February.
Of 24?
Yeah.
They have construction drawings?
You're doing wrong, that's what you're supposed to do. 11.
The construction
An
drawings.
idea is throwing the drain schedule to the back.
It's gonna take them 3 months. Oh, they let the construction, so they already have plans.
They're starting design. They're starting design, they don't
They're doing design right now.
start construction. No, they'll have it done by 25.
So can we apply for something?
Do what? Where?
You're too close to the light.
The turn lane goes all the way past your entrance.
The Hart Road turn.
Oh, they just had a really bad accident and somebody made a U-turn.
That's why they're justifying the medium project. They're gonna make you turn, you make U-turns, but your U-turns are theoretically protected because you'll have to go down the turning lane. But what you have to be careful of, and I don't know if they're doing this or not, the southbound right turns from Hart to Bayshore should have. Sometimes you see a right turn light, and I don't know if they're putting a right turn light on the southbound left turn lane.
Yes, there is a term, but they still, there should never be right on red.
So they can put a they can signalize. They can put a traffic signal. I don't know if it, I don't know about their project, but they can put a signal. Fortunately, there's U-turn lane. Fortunate and unfortunate. Between the existing median, there's 2 lanes of traffic, and then there's like a large acceleration. So, yeah, so it gives you 3 lanes of traffic to make a U-turn. That's if they stop the parkway at the right
Come around that corner, you make your turn signal on, and this is not making a U-turn, it's coming from the post. Come around with your turn signal on, and the harbor post, and it's there, you can't get over it. So,
there are fairly inexpensive solutions, like just putting up a go right on red sign, and maybe a red light, like a light for the right turn. Yeah, so you're southbound on Hart, put a traffic light there, or in a sign that says go right on red, put a traffic light there, like a red arrow kind of thing, or put a traffic light, another traffic light that says red. And then they could just use a post on the side of the road with lights on it. That's all they do. So there are, I'm saying there's a fairly inexpensive solution to help with that, but help with that conflict between right and left.
One gal there, I want her to see all these, she's gonna,
But all the permits and
all these photos I got here. Last one was
one of your neighbors.
I started actually doing this on April 6th.
So if they hired a biologist to dig it out from underneath
Meeting on the 30th, because I wanted to get just within our 150 feet.
they hired a biologist,
Some technical.
and that biologist dug it out from underneath.
All these, they're all coming out of our reserve. There's 870.
And about 3
The church didn't accept it. The chapel, this was, and this one was like 5 different things. This is all within.
I don't think he operated by the rules.
What's that?
Sorry?
Not the church.
I think we need that. This would be a lot more pleasant with that. I'm like, it's Friday, it's the end of the week. I was looking for coffee and I couldn't find it. I've had to go
Some of these are.
in the back where the staff are to get it, but, yeah. Well, I think we'll be done by noon. Yeah.
That's one of the big ones.
I didn't say
I'm not sure where this one was.
What do you do when they come back home?
Just in our 150 feet between me and Michelle and Barbie. Barbie, since the March 30th meeting, she's that just came in. 2 weeks ago.
The only problem with the whole marijuana is that there's federal, usually through all the other nonsense right there.
Now that's a guarantee.
Dispensaries are popping up left and right.
It's probably like 25, 30 pounds. I don't know, something like that. But then we got these little bitty guys.
Companies have to be.
Since I started working on this place, I haven't been able to take any photos because I'm working on it. We don't go anywhere, we're permanent. There's not one of those little bitty guys. These are all, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of them.
They make that RSO, that's what I think. Left turn here, you got header.
This picture here was taken from my backyard. That's actually the
He's probably another 20. Probably don't feel the THC so much as you do the anti-inflammatory. So these are all, each one of these pictures is a different temperature. That's a little bit. But it's all taken the same day.
So anyway,
Don't know. There's one that comes in and out of yard and I sit in the shelves. It's either 53 or 50.
and my daughter, she's married.
On the shelves. Somebody just put up in there.
That's the same age.
Little one there too. There's another one, 93. Same day. That's one of the new big ones in Barb Jar.
Honestly,
She's got 3 new ones. They're just yeah. That's another one. I don't even think I've ever been there. Yeah, I don't know. That lady over there is gonna get that's what's on that flash drive. We did go see Bayshore, so I had to be part of it. Or no, I didn't. You were dealing with it.
17 Winter Haven all the way to Saturday.
Right.
They got a.
We went to, you know, kids work at school, but he fantasized. We went last summer, looked at South Carolina, Duke, NC State. And I really like North Carolina. He liked it.
Ooh, yeah, hungry. I know. I have first. Last night was so warm. Last night was so bad.
I think it's great.
How late were you guys there? I left. I asked to leave after the hearings because they go on for another hour, and it was 8. I was like, thank you. We just talk. I don't know. Derek Dutch, she.
Thank you.
I was in Bonita the night before. I left at what 6:30 after my item, but she was still there. Same thing last
Okay, I'd like to resume. If we can take our seats.
Okay, we ready to proceed? Okay. I think we were on this slide, and what I was getting ready to discuss with this series of slides has to do with, these are just some pictures along the perimeter of our property, and we've put together a photo deck of photographs around the perimeter.
Are we on 11 now?
12.
12.
We didn't obviously put all of the photos that are in this photo deck in our presentation. We just put some good representative ones in there. In the last page, in the last page of what I gave you is another aerial with an index of where the photographs are, like this. So when if you look at it later, you'll be able to see the photographs and where they're taken.
Basically, you're going around the perimeter of the site,
Yes.
taking photographs of,
Of the perimeter condition. I'm gonna be describing approximately where the property line is as we go through this. So,
see a couple of code violations.
that wasn't the purpose of the photo deck. That
I'm an officer of the court.
Fortunately, engineers have a special allowance in the statute for trespassing when we need to do our job, so. I'm allowed to. All right, surveyors have the same privilege. So this is walking around the site. So to my left is the panhandle piece. Further beyond that, on that vegetation would be Bayshore Road. There's a sidewalk and then some trees along Bayshore and then the pavement. What you see on the left is the exotic vegetation that has to be removed. I mean, it's a standard LDC requirement. It's unfortunate. You know, you heard testimony of what, I'm sorry.
Wait, go back to that. So
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hit the wrong
earlier
button.
when you had the drainage exhibit, you were talking about the small,
Correct. I'm going to
Okay.
speak on that, yeah. So, you know, you heard testimony from one of these neighbors here, how they would lose this, and you can see some of the large trees here. This is what we're going to preserve, and then this area we have to completely clear. In this area, we'd just go and remove, keeping the trees. We would not like send the bulldozers in there because that'll kill the pines. We would hand clear through here and treat chemically treat the exotics to help keep them from coming back here. We can mechanically clear because there's no trees, but we would replant this area with vegetation to replace the buffer. No, it's not a high Brazilian pepper hedge, but we can't keep that, unfortunately. But the goal is you plant things in there and you let them go. You let them grow. Some of the vegetation that we've kept, and we have, there's an open space plan in the case file, and this replanting is detailed in that case file. On the open space plan, there's a special diagram. I have a copy of it here in the presentation. This is part of their drainage system. So it's the roads, the internal roads are to the right. I think Carriage Lane or something is to the right. It turns, and there's a concrete flume. Here's where it goes into a pipe. Right here, there's a little head wall. This is one of the drainage pipes that comes from their streets, and this is where they've installed some informal pumps to help drain their roadways quicker. And they're just lifting the water into a pipe here. This pipe comes towards us in this photograph to the entrance of their project, and then would turn in this photograph to our left towards State Road 80. Not State Road 80, Bayshore Road.
Where exactly is the property line?
The property line in this case is probably, just judging from the power lines, the property line is probably just to the left of this this concrete swale. You can see the maintenance is kind of coming over the property line, just to the left of the concrete swale. We've come down, we've turned the corner. This would be, and there are a lot more photographs. I mean, as you go through the photo stack, but I don't want to. I don't know. As a nerdy engineer, I find them interesting, but I don't want to make this take longer than it needs to. This is now I'm facing north on our east property line. Again, I'm standing right at about the power line, or right about the property line. There are gravity sewers back here. This gravity sewer kind of meanders back and forth across the property line. But, you know, the tip of that little patio is probably lapping over into the property. But this is the area that we're going to try to keep those tall pines. And you saw in Josh's illustrations, Josh Kelly's illustrations, where, you know, we've kind of illustrated some of these tall pines in there. So that's what we're trying to show, that we're going to keep these where we can. In that indigenous preserve area. Moving north, this is where I talked about the sewer meanders. So you can see this particular clean out is substantially into the property. The property line would be right about here, maybe 5 foot off the power line would be the property line. So here, that sewer line is coming back and forth. I don't know that this is going to be a problem if it lands in that indigenous preserve area. It's not going to be an issue. Now this is along the east property line, but now I'm looking back south. This is near that north property corner, and you can see, you know, power line is about 5 feet outside of our property. You can see, again, how the sewer line is meandering and how all this area is maintained. This is where a number of the gopher tortoises are, over in these tall areas here. All this grass maintenance gives a foraging area for the gopher tortoises. So we've turned the north corner. Now we're facing west. I'm not certain whose house this is, but, you know, again, the property line is right about here. There's a lot, and in the photo deck, you'll see there's a lot of this situation going on along the property line. Obviously, this would have to move, but this whole area is part of the property, the subject property. in our exhibits on the north side where we've done the indigenous preserve, some of these trees in here are that north indigenous preserve. And I'm bringing the drainage around, the proposed drainage around the indigenous preserve to try to take advantage of where the land has already been cleared, so we don't have to clear additional vegetation to bring the drainage over to the pond. From about where I'm standing here, the pond would be to my left. Again, I'm on the north property line facing facing west. I've gone to the northwest property corner, and now I'm facing back south. So these are the concrete single-family houses off of Shirley Lane. Again, this is where I said earlier where most of these neighbors have some sort of fence along their property line. The only one that doesn't is one immediately to my right. They don't have a fence, but everybody else from here to Bayshore Road has a fence. Again, there's been clearing activities. Some people have built gardens back here and things of that nature. There's actually some active mowing maintenance. Getting closer to Bayshore Road, again, west property line looking south. One of the neighbors has even planted some additional areca palms behind their fence. The fence is right at the property line in this case. This is the home, this larger garage here. This house is right up against Bayshore Road. That's actually a concrete wall that they built right there. Just beyond those Brazilian peppers is the edge of Bayshore Road. Again, this is an example of, you've heard testimony of just leave it zoned as is. It doesn't completely solve the visibility problem for them. The pool enclosure can be close. There's no buffer requirement, single family to single family. There's no indigenous requirements in single family. So there's less preserve around the perimeter. We did a quick comparison between the two to show you how we believe that this is probably a better situation for them long-term. Buffering around the perimeter. We've tried very hard to put our soft edges around the perimeter. And concentrating our hard construction into the middle of the project. Again, this is an example of how that buffer deviation changes at the entrance. I was just illustrating some of the trees here. This is the same illustration that's contained in the amended buffer deviation package. Josh has prepared an enhanced buffer, and what the enhancement is that the shrubs would not be trimmed to reduce height. So this would be beyond the wall entrance. And again, we had the discussion about our entrance location relative to that common corner. And without the median, we really don't have a choice. With the median, we have a choice, and we wouldn't need this. We wouldn't need this. We wouldn't have to do this situation. If we just
You wouldn't have to what? What would you have to do?
We wouldn't need deviation number 2 without the.
It would still be a wall with vegetation, it just wouldn't be a setback issue.
There are two ways to do the perimeter. If your pavement is within 125 feet, you have two things that you have to do, either or. One is build a wall at 25 feet from the common corner, or put a 30-foot setback and put a type F buffer. So one or the other. It's a wall with less plantings. It's 5 foot more buffer with more plantings. That's the two options in the land development code. A wall with a B buffer, or a 30 feet, which is 25 feet. A wall at 25 feet and a B buffer, or.
This is all a factor of timing, whether this project goes first or the Bayshore improvement goes first.
Correct. Correct. I think that is really, I think it concludes everything between landscaping, buffering. We do have some additional environmental items. You've seen, we've gone through this part. All right, Church, if you'd like to.
Before you leave, I have a
Okay.
couple.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Someone mentioned having a hurricane evacuation plan.
Oh, yes, yeah.
At the time of development order, if you have a project with more than 50 units, do you have to do a hurricane evacuation?
Yeah, we would put together, as part of the ordinary development process is to prepare the hurricane evacuations plan during the DO process. The question was also asked about the structures. Are the structures hurricane-proof? Well, nothing can be hurricane-proof, but they are built to current, they would be built to current, whatever the then current building code is for wind, et cetera, meeting FEMA requirements for flooding and surge is part of that requirement.
And there's also been several people, even today, who are concerned seemingly that there's going to be a plethora of school buses. Exhibit K to the staff report is a letter from the school district to Sharam that indicates a total of 21 school-age children would be generated by this project. In your understanding, would that be a plethora of school buses, or would that be fairly limited?
I would think there'd be maybe one per school age group, but I don't think it's a plethora of school buses. The 21 children, they give some statistics that they quote in their letter on how they come across, or how they calculate the density of school children. So it's not something that we generated, but it's school district-wide averages that they use. And it's in the staff report. It's not something we solicited. I think it was something.
What's the plan for the school bus stop?
So we don't have control of that. We cannot invite them in, or you can see from the turning movements diagrams that I did, we can get a 100-foot ladder truck through our project. We would gladly have a school bus come into the project and pick up kids. The school district corresponded with us and said that they would likely use the existing Lee Tran bus stop at the front, in the middle of the site. So they would have a roughly safe place for kids. There is a bike lane on the road, so the kids aren't like right next to the travel lane. There's a large area, there's a large concrete area between the sidewalks and the concrete for the bus stop that is available. The neighborhood could even enhance that if they chose. Part of our developmental requirement will be to build a bigger platform, a bigger concrete platform than what is currently there. Typically, they want an 8 by 30-foot concrete landing. What's there today is a concrete landing, but it's just not quite that large. And typically, we propose to lengthen it or widen it, whatever the situation calls for. Every situation's slightly different. This project isn't big enough for us to put in, there's like 2 thresholds. It's not the bigger threshold. We would not be putting in a pull-off lane or anything like that. It's not warranted under the code. All right, church. The red one for the pointer and the right arrow for the slide.
All right, I'm Church Roberts with Church Environmental, and I've been accepted in this forum before as an expert witness. With regard to the gopher tortoises, I do appreciate all the public's concern and comments on the gopher tortoises. Over the last 29 years, I've worked on numerous projects throughout Lee County regarding or involving gopher tortoises. I've worked on projects public and private. I did the most recent gopher tortoise project at the Lee County Powell Creek Filter Marsh, the most recent phase of that, which is downstream of this project. I did West Bay Club, Shadowwood Preserve, Crown Colony, Babcock Ranch Community. So I'm intimately familiar with gopher tortoises, the biology and the regulations. And for this project, the way the rules work now is if you have 1 burrow, you have 100 burrows. 90 days before construction, you have to do a 100% survey of the area. So you have to cover the entire parcel, and you apply for your conservation permit from the Fish and Wildlife Commission, and then you go and relocate all the gopher tortoises to an approved off-site recipient site. That's what you do on all projects in this part of the state. You had asked last time about Kunti. Kunti is it's a plant. It's a 2-foot by 3-foot low-growing shrub. It's an evergreen plant, frequently used in landscaping and other activities like that. We have a small population of Kunti on site. There are 3 clusters, and those Kunti will be relocated into the preserve areas. And I'm sure Josh can probably work in a few Kuntis in the landscape plan as well. And I think, Tim, that's all. We talked about the tree survey last time. I don't think I have to add anything. We're just going to meet all the rules and requirements for heritage tree mitigation.
Let me just ask you a question. There's a lot of discussion today about whose tortoises they are. Does anyone actually own tortoises? These aren't like dogs, right? That can be your...
No, they're not like dogs, and you're really not supposed to number them. You're not supposed to feed them. All those things are in violation of the laws. But they are, you know, warm and fuzzy critters, so I can appreciate how people like them.
And are you allowed to move the baby tortoises around if you don't have the appropriate permits and qualifications?
No, you're not allowed to without the appropriate permits. But one thing about baby tortoises is this is a reproducing population that's out there. So the survey that I represent there is static. It represents that time that I did that survey. You go out there today, the burrows are going to move. There's going to be new ones. Again, it's a reproducing population, and our permit will cover all of those tortoises to be relocated.
Thank you.
Alexis Crespo with RBI Planning, Planning and Landscape Architecture, and I have been accepted as an expert in land use planning, the LEAD Plan, and the Land Development Code, and I'm our last speaker, so I told folks we could maybe get out before lunch. So at the last hearing, you wanted more information about built height and density in the area, what's occurring in terms of redevelopment in North Fort Myers. So we wanted to walk you through that today. So, and we'll get into some of the built form in the area and some projects that are coming online here soon, but want to start the discussion with, again, the discussion that we're in the central urban future land use category. This is our Lee County's second most intensive future land use category. The only other area intended for more dense and intense development is that blue area labeled as intensive development on this slide. So this is where the Lee Plan really is directing the county to locate infill and more density and intensity in order to be able to preserve the eastern lands within the county and really put people where we have all the urban services and facilities that we can service the population. And certainly when you're an infill project like this, we happen to be on an arterial road proximate to all these services, but we are surrounded by single family and mobile home communities that have been in place since the 1960s and 70s. So the area was built up largely before Lee County started its more rapid growth, and these urban services came to be in place in this immediate area. So we need to balance those items, certainly, and that's where we went back to the master concept plan and modified some of the development standards to try to or better achieve that balance. So we want to definitely put on the record, and this is outlined well in the staff report, of course, but we are proposing this density. It is bonus density, but we are locating it exactly where Lee County is directing us to put it, which is in a location where you're very proximate to schools. We have elementary, middle, and high school, all within a 5-mile radius of the project. Fire station, hospitals, EMS. We have a great regional park facility less than a mile away. Transit lines abut the property, and we're proximate to downtown and employment nodes. And the property does front on an arterial roadway, which is also a place where you wouldn't locate lower density, but rather where you'd look to locate higher density intensity uses. Height, this is fairly unique to Lee County, but they actually look at future land use when establishing the maximum building heights for planned development zoning districts. Because, and it actually makes a lot of sense, because they're trying to direct growth to certain areas, and to tie it back to height makes that connection between, if you want density and intensity, you also have to allow certain heights in order to accommodate the development. So again, central urban is coupled with this intensive development because they are the most dense and intense categories in the county. This category allows buildings to be as tall as 135 feet. and 12 stories in height. So certainly, considering our context, I'm not submitting that that would be appropriate here, but just demonstrating that at the 52 feet we're proposing, we're well below what the Lee plan anticipates in terms of maximum height. Looking at the heights allowed, the other thing I think it's important to note is that we're well within the central urban. We're really not on the edge of this category. It doesn't drop to the suburban category for several miles to our east. Suburban is allowed up to 75 feet as you transition closer to the interstate, or as you can see getting near Cape Coral. But again, this category is supportive of the height we are requesting. We did look at the zoning districts. Many of these were zoned in the early 2000s, and again, before some of the rapid growth we've been seeing in Lee County occurred. So I cannot tell you that there's a PD abutting us or in very close proximity that has the height we are requesting, but I'll note a recent amendment to Chapel Creek, which is near the interstate, that has requested 45 feet through its amendment. A cell tower has been approved in the Bayshore 42 project at 149 feet. But I think what's important to note from a zoning standpoint is some of the redevelopment that's occurring, and it's really starting logically along this 41 corridor. But we have Merchants Crossing, who our office did an amendment for a couple of years ago to redevelop a portion of that site that was underutilized commercial with apartment housing. And that zoning approval allows for 50-foot tall multifamily buildings at a much higher density than we're requesting. So that's not built yet, but it was a zoning action that occurred fairly recently, and I think it's a sign that the redevelopment is coming to this area, and it's going to be more consistent with that long-range vision for the central urban and intensive development areas. Our office is also working on Hancock Bridge Square, which is at Hancock Bridge Parkway and US 41, and I've got another slide that labels that, and we're seeking, again, multifamily, converting underutilized commercial, and a maximum height of 52 feet for those apartments. Now getting into, I think, what you were more specifically asking, which was what's the built environment. We do have the four-story LCEC building. It's set back off of Bayshore a little bit. It's accessed by Bayline Drive. It's fairly visible from the roadway network, and it's very proximate also to the single-family community in this area, and that is a four-story existing building that's been in place in this area for a very long time. It was my first planning job was in that building, actually. So there is height in the area, really in direct view of this property. Then these are the other two projects that I highlighted that are either under construction or under permitting with Lee County. Merchants Crossing seeking or approved for 280 dwelling units, which on the portion of the property used for that, it's a 35 unit per acre density at 50 feet of building height, and then Hancock Bridge Apartments at 22 units per acre and 52 feet, exactly what we're seeking here. And they are within 2 miles of the subject property as the crow flies. There's also other projects under review by Lee County in the area that they're not approved yet, so I can't really rely on those too heavily, but there is a project directly across the site, street from the site, that is seeking 3 stories in height, and that has been filed. And I've noted it's DCI.
How many stories? 3?
3 stories. It is a mini warehouse or conditioned self-storage. So to close up the testimony, the application as modified and presented to you today is even more consistent with the Lee plan than it was when we were here last time. I really want to focus on the neighborhood compatibility. We've reduced the building height to 52 feet. We will submit development regulations that commit to 60-foot minimum PD perimeter setback, which is more than double the PD perimeter setback specified in Chapter 34 of the code. Through the buffers, the maintenance of indigenous vegetation, and just the design of the site, we are pulling the development into the project in order to maintain compatibility with our single-story neighbors. And with the addition of the central amenity, we were also very sensitive to locate that centrally, so it would not impact the neighbors, as those can generate some noise. This project is directly in compliance with the intent for the central urban category. This is the density intensity that the Lee plan prescribes in this category, and in a location such as this where we have all the infrastructure to support the growth. That's along with Objective 2.2 and the supportive policies about timing development where the infrastructure is in place to serve it, which we've demonstrated through this application, and locating it within the future urban areas. I think it's also important to note that the project will provide for housing diversity. Policy 13519 of the Lee plan, a lot of North Fort Myers was developed with single family type housing, and so this is providing a new opportunity for either young professionals, younger families. Obviously, there's a strong demand for affordability, and these higher density projects are typically more affordable than purchasing a single family home. So it's in line with that policy. I forgot one project, and one of the ladies actually mentioned it, and it was one of my projects. It's in Cape Coral, so I didn't think of mentioning it, but you can see it right here. It's just past Merchants Crossing and just west of US 41, but these are 2 Continental apartment projects in the Judd Creek PD, which is in Cape Coral, and those are apartments at 50 feet in height as well, so I neglected to mention that.
What road is that there? Is that Pine Island Road?
That's
there?
Pine Island, yes. And then Barrett, and then this is Highway 41. I've submitted on the record in the previous hearing that the application is consistent with the LDC criteria. We're in agreement with your staff that it meets all of these criteria, particularly those relating to compatibility. The deviations are consistent also with those criteria, and they've been modified even further to mitigate their impacts. Sharam used 146B, which I believe I should have used, which is the bonus density criteria. These are also in that section of the code, but I wanted just to put on the record, in terms of the bonus density we're seeking, there's 4 criteria in the LDC. The first is that the additional traffic generated by this bonus density will not be required to travel through lower density neighborhoods before reaching an arterial or a collector. We're fully consistent with that policy. We have direct access onto an arterial roadway. Number 2 is existing and committed public facilities are not so overwhelmed that the density increase would be contrary to the public interest. We've demonstrated through the application materials we have all of the requisite infrastructure for the density being proposed. Number 3 is either providing additional mitigation if you're located within the coastal high hazard area. This is not subject to the coastal high hazard area, and also a good indication of why it's proper to locate more density on the site. And then lastly, the resulting development will be compatible with existing and planned surrounding land uses. And we would submit with the modified MCP, we are meeting the definition of compatibility by mitigating the impacts of visual, noise, light, et cetera, through the proposed buffering and site design. With that, I'm complete my testimony.
I have.
Okay.
Before you get to that, I do have one question. I mean, we know that the property is zone C1, which is commercial, and I know everybody hasn't had a chance to totally digest live local, but based on your understanding of that bill that's been signed by the governor, is it trying to provide for multifamily and infill locations with higher density and heights?
Yes.
Which,
Do you want me to expand on that, or?
I'm not going to quiz you on it now. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Tim has something he wants to touch on.
I have one thing I neglected to point out. On the master concept plan, again, for the record, Tim Keene, on the master concept plan, a lot of the testimony this morning, there was some worry that there wasn't a fence around the property. Our site plan does include a perimeter fence. It's just not a wall. We do, and that the perimeter fencing corresponds with having a gated entry. That's one of the upgrade features that this project can provide. Is, you know, they're worried about security. The residents who live here might be worried about security. So we are providing a type of fence. We haven't specified the material or the exact height, but we do show a fence. It's actually labeled on our master concept plan. And I failed to point that out earlier, so I apologize.
Thank you. Does that conclude applicant's presentation?
Yes, it does, unless there's a question you have that remains unanswered.
No questions. I want to thank you for elaborating on the questions that were raised by the public and for the modification to your proposed height in response to the comments.
May I ask the applicant a question?
Yes.
People, they were talking about residents of this development going and using their pool. You are showing amenity areas. Are you proposing a pool?
I will note for the record, the idea that people are going to trespass and swim in their pool is not necessarily a well-founded concern, and it's not a zoning criteria. But with that,
No, we did not specifically show a pool, quote-unquote, pool in our amenity area. And one of the reasons is that a commercial pool with ADA accessibility requirements are very expensive. You're talking about pools that have to have like a zero entry or some sort of mechanical lift to comply with ADA requirements. So we're not necessarily showing that. We don't wish that to be a condition of approval. You know, it might ultimately be a pool of some sort. I just don't know. There's an area where a splash pad for younger children can be installed. That's where a lot of the developments are going. They're just putting in an area for kids to get wet and enjoy a warm afternoon, a playground, something of that, just a little amenity feature for children or in families to gather.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Shahram. I'm just checking. Was there anything additional you wanted to put in the record?
No, ma'am, except that we have a letter from the fire district, North Fort Myers Fire Department, and they have no objection to this development. And we have a letter from the EMS, they have no objection, and also from the Sheriff's Department. They're all in the staff report. That's all. Thank you.
Let's talk about how long we're going to keep the record open. I am requesting a codified, revised list of conditions, deviations, property development regulations. I'm hoping this won't take too long. I'm thinking about 48 hours should be enough. Michelle Latore, I could not accept your flash drive, but you also have 48 hours to provide your photographs. We will ensure that a copy gets sent to the applicant's team. I understand it's a composite of photographs that you've taken. You can stop in my office to find out the right email address to send it to. I think it's hearingexaminer@legov.com, but I'm not sure, so, because I don't use that email. It goes to my secretaries, and they can provide you with what that is. Everyone else, please do not send any emails to our office because the record is closed. If I get anything other than these photographs that I'm doing as a courtesy, because we really can't accept a foreign drive into our computer, I'm only going to accept that, and copies will be provided to the applicant and their team.
I have a question. Earlier in Mr. King's testimony, when he was going over the FDOT changes, he indicated that they are in the process of working on getting that directional left, and that the access point could be moved. And you asked if he had a condition, and he said he didn't. Is that something you'd like us to provide a draft?
Yes, that's
Okay.
why I'm saying more than just if you could give me more than just the new property development regulations, if you could just give me a codified
Okay.
everything, and then I know I rely on that document versus the other
Okay.
ones that have been talked about or that are in the staff report. And if you don't mind, please send it to Shahram first. Make sure you're in accord with that version. I know I said 48 hours, but why don't we
You
say?
want us to work over the weekend?
No, I don't. And how about we say by next Friday?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm out of town. I'm leaving from here to go to the Bahamas, so.
There's nothing stopping you from getting it to me by Tuesday, though. I'm just saying, let's put the date out there. May 12th.
Okay.
If you can get that to us perhaps by noon on May 12th. The cutoff to get this case heard by the Board of County Commissioners before their break is May 26th. I will try my best, but I cannot guarantee I will make that deadline, especially since I'm going to be on vacation the week of the 22nd. But I will start working on this case next week, and I can still work on it before you submit that portion of it. I just want you to know going in that there is a chance I may not make that deadline, although I will try.
Did you have your big case? I know you had mentioned you had a long case coming up. Did you have that yet?
Yes, but that is getting continued for an additional hearing day.
Okay.
So you're well-positioned,
That's what I was checking on, yes.
but I also make no promises.
Okay.
If you don't make it before the board break, you'll probably make the first hearing after the board comes back.
But they're usually not happy then. They want to be on vacation.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming. I appreciate your comments. I'm going to close the record now. I also encourage you to continue conversations with the applicant if you need clarification on anything, or there's any unresolved issue in your mind that they can clarify for you. Thank you.